So the great pleasure and the passion that I had for working on old stuff up until the late 80s really turned into being able to design stuff on my own and to teach other people to design stuff on their own. And I've enjoyed very much the new structures that have come out of the Northford Timber Framers since probably the early 90s. And the continuation of our class, which we started officially teaching around 1992, 94, we were doing lectures, and it turned into an official class like in 1995. So I equally enjoy currently teaching people to build new structures for themselves. It's very exciting to use different types of woods like cherry for the braces, or to build a great big summer beam that looks like a ship's keel and just something totally oversized with a big tree branch scribed into it. So the new work is a lot of fun for me. And the new work has, again, helped the full circle process and helped my soul to feel complete. But it's an interesting perspective, because without my experience with old frames and being able to touch the past, I wouldn't understand how to teach people new frames and how to embrace the future.
Excellent. Well, they're all beautiful buildings, but I do enjoy the variety. What's the difference that you would say between this class for timber framing and another class that might be available?
You came prepared with some great questions this morning, Amy. I'm very proud of our class. I'm very proud of the skills that we have developed in teaching others this forgotten art. There's a lot of big differences. I'm not even sure where to start. What is the most important thing? I think the one-on-one experience and guidance that a student gets with us is priceless. So each pair of students, each team of students, or each very small group of students gets one of my class assistants who is a very able person, man or woman, someone who has been around and involved in this process for over 10 years. Those are generally who our assistants are. And each group gets an assistant. I think our class experience is much more practical than what I see and hear about other timber frame classes throughout the country. I'm very proud to say that I think our class is probably a first-rate class and stacks up against any other class in the country. And I know firsthand that it's the best bargain. I know that, our $295 is absolutely, the cheapest rock bottom price you're going to get on any timber frame class. Most of those other timber frame classes are requiring a 7 to 10 day commitment. And I've had students tell me that they don't learn any more at a 10-day class than they did in 3 days with us. And the secret there is that our class does not end after that third day. Our class is a full-time apprenticeship, and it's a full-time continuation of each year's project. So the students from last year's class get invited back to help on this year's class project. So class never really ends. I'm actually not doing it justice. I'm not doing how special our class is justice. We teach about restoration. We teach with spirit. We try and impose on people that it's more than a timber, that it's more than a mortise and tenon joint. That if you can feel the work in front of you, how important it is that each timber becomes its own individual piece of sculpture. So it's not just any one timber, it's that timber that you're working on that's special. And it needs its own individual thought process. And it can be chamfered differently, or have a cherry brace in it, or a walnut brace in it that sets it apart from another center post or another corner post. So I think I enjoy that we impose on students to think of this timber frame as a giant tree fort, or a work of art, or a piece of furniture that they can do for themselves. And it's not just yabba dabba do, and it's not a bunch of boring math equations, which are really not necessary for a student to design and develop a really nice building for themselves. If they wanted to be an engineer, they could have become an engineer. If a student wants to timber frame, they can do it without a bunch of burdensome knowledge. So thank you for that question. I'm really proud of our Northford Timber Framer class.
I've always appreciated the level of detail as well. So tell me more about this year's class project. Where will it be built? What is it?
Very excited about this year's class sponsor and this year's class project. This year's class project is a 22-foot wide, 36-foot long, 4-bent timber frame. It's going to have a giant summer beam in it, something that looks like part of a boat or out of an 18th century house. The summer beam will probably be 8 inches wide and 16 inches tall or vertical. This year's barn is going to be built in, it's going to be started at the classroom in Wallingford, Connecticut, where fortunately we have the opportunity to teach again. It'll start in April, and we will continue with a workshop in May, which is this year's, the class of 2013 has the opportunity to attend a workshop 1 month after class, which the workshops are great because the new students get to intermingle with the rest of our group and work with veterans and continue their apprenticeship. And then we will have the timber frame raising for this year's project in September up in Vermont. So the exciting thing about this year's class, one of the many exciting things about this year's class, is that a student is going to see the versatility that timber framing has. That a timber frame can be started in the state of Connecticut in a class experience, and then it can be finished over the summer by the person that is going to possess this timber frame. And then this can actually be moved, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, it can be moved 2 states away and then constructed 6 months from the time that it started. So a really good, well-rounded experience for this year's class, because they get to see the design of the building on paper, each individual post sketched out. So a student gets to see how to lay out the building, how to execute a material list, how to execute the timber frame, how to cut the rafters, how to organize, how to have a sequence, then how to put this whole package together, move it to Vermont, unpackage it, and then build the beds as they would have done in 1810. And so our whole group will come together and assemble up in Vermont, up in Essex Junction, Vermont, next September, and the class of 2013 will help us to build that 4-bed structure. So that's this year's class project.
Excellent. Sounds like a lot to learn. Is there any level of experience that you feel that people would need to have in order to take the class, or is it for beginners? What's the level? That question actually can go back to 2 questions ago about what's different about our class. There's actually no skill level or experience required to take our class. But that doesn't mean that a person will feel intimidated or feel that they should have known more, because that's not the way our class works. People get paired up with a partner, whether it's someone they came with. A student with no experience might get paired up with one of my best class assistants and best instructors who can explain the lesson, who can take the time to make sure that that student feels comfortable. And a student that is probably in the middle of the road, who maybe has some woodworking experience, possibly has done some carpentry, or is just kind of handy, they will get the same lesson. Everybody gets the same lesson, but the person at the middle of the road might be asked to do a task that's a little bit above the person that has no experience at all. So they'll be on their own a little bit more. And then a person that comes to us from another class, which happens a lot. We get lots of people from other classes
because our class has a good reputation of being very practical and very user-friendly. So no skills are required. We had a father and daughter take class this year. This young gal had just graduated from college. Her father was a retired firefighter, and it was just something for them to do together. And it was a wonderful thing to see, and that young gal had no experience, but at the end of 3 days, she left with so much enthusiasm about our American architectural history, about what it feels like to work together in a group as they would have done 200 years ago to accomplish a common project. So we're happy to have the door open to class for people of all skill levels.
Well, it sounds like a really exciting experience. I'm looking forward to April now.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Was that the last of your questions? So, but then Amy, I have one question for you. I'm going to turn this around and become the interviewer. Is it true that you really teach kickboxing at a Harley-Davidson dealership in Rhode Island? That's the perfect ending, Dana. That's the perfect ending. The Northford Timber Framers will piss their pants.
I was supposed to ask you why you wear women's underwear.
Oh, you were? You didn't get a chance to get it out because I trumped you. Dana, how'd that all sound? That's my wife. I'm sorry. It's about mom. I mean, sometimes I do this and
I got that on film.
I stutter, I swear, but I notice every time I talk bad about engineers, he won't put it in there, doesn't he? We love our Mitchie boy. Visitor stop by. My good friend. Let's start again.